All right, welcome to episode 11 of Heath Barn Hoopcast. I'm your host, John Heath. This episode was very, very satisfying for me because it's a guest that I was thought would always be really cool to track down, and I did it relatively easy, actually, with a little help from shout out Nate Mast, helping me out with maybe kind of how to track him down. But once I did, he was very cooperative, and he was a great, great guest. So it is former Illini RIchard Keene. We start off by talking, he was recently inducted into the Collinsville Hall of Fame, which is a tremendous honor. We talked about that. Then we get into like growing up, if you like other sports, things like that, which kind of leads him to talking about the job that his dad had when Rich was growing up, which you should really pay attention to that because I had no idea, and it's an amazing, amazing job. So very, very cool. Talking about his childhood, things like that. He gets into, obviously we talk about basketball, talk about playing down south and how that compares to maybe guys coming from other parts of the state. Talks about obviously recruiting stories, which are top notch, which someone like RIchard Keene, who was coming in was as such a high, such a big prospect. I think a lot of people remember it came down to Illinois and Duke, so good Duke stories, very, very good Duke stories. So then he talks about his time at Illinois, talks about Lou Henson. Every time I have someone that played for Coach Henson, it is always interesting to hear their thoughts on him. So, and Rich's are no different. They are very, very interesting. So he was great. He has two children playing Division I sports right now, and another one that will be playing Division I basketball next year. So we had a lot of great talk about what it's like raising kids and going through the process of being recruited as a player and what it's like now as a father. Very, very interesting stuff. Get into NIL and all those things, obviously, because with his kids, that's a huge part of what's going on right now in college athletics, obviously. So it was a great conversation, man. He was an awesome guest, and I want to thank him for coming on and just being great. So hope you guys enjoy it. Shout out RIchard Keene. Thank you very, very much for coming on the podcast, and enjoy it. All right. I'm here with former Illini RIchard Keene. Rich, this is awesome having you on, man. Thanks a lot.
No, it's awesome. Appreciate having me.
Yeah. I'll tell you a super quick story before we start. I remember being in the 8th grade, and you were a senior, and I live like in East Central Illinois, but it was like a 3-hour drive, but our coach just wouldn't stop talking about RIchard Keene, and he took us to a game, like one of your home games when you were a senior, and it was like a 2.5, 3-hour drive, but so I was always like, even like in junior high, I was like hoping, go to Illinois, all that kind of stuff. So this is really, really cool talking to you because I have memories of you from when I was little and I watched you play in high school once. So, but
you're just gonna make me feel old, huh?
Yeah. I'm doing this and I'm only 4 years younger than you, so But I was gonna start off too. I just saw recently you made the Collinsville Hall of Fame. So. Congratulations on that, and do you want to maybe talk about that a little bit? How recently was that?
Yeah, we just had the induction ceremony February 13th, so it was actually, we flew back I guess it was over a week ago. But yeah, they inducted me. They announced it. Actually, my son, he's a senior in high school here in the Woodlands, Texas. They invited our team to play in the Collinsville Holiday Tournament this year, and
that's really cool.
Yeah, they kind of did a kind of deal at halftime or in between the games before Collinsville played and after we played, and kind of announced the 2025 class. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool. Then they had a big ceremony this past Thursday, and yeah, really cool event. Rick George, AD of Colorado, went in. 1980 baseball team won a state championship, which my uncle was the head coach. So it was a cool night. Good to see a lot of people again, but actually going back for my son to play in the Collinsville tournament was actually really cool because that's one of the first times going back, getting to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time, getting in the gym I haven't been in a long time, and brought back a lot of cool memories. So
yeah, that's really, really neat that your son got to play in that tournament. That's awesome. Well, I guess we kind of start from the beginning with these because I always like hearing all these stories and everything. But like when you were growing up,
maybe talk about, was it always basketball? Were there other sports you enjoyed when you were younger? And then what kind of, was there a point in time where you just felt, if you were playing other sports, was there a point in time where it was just like you realized that basketball was going to be the sport for you?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, we played every sport you could, around the neighborhood. But I played Little League baseball, obviously, and then, basketball were the two main sports. Played soccer growing up also. I was a pretty good pitcher, pretty good baseball player. But once I kind of got to junior high, I kind of got the feeling, even though I still thought I could be a pitcher, but once I got to high school, my freshman year, I started varsity as a freshman. So then it kind of made me just kind of put all my focus, everything into kind of training just to be a basketball player. Kind of gave up every other sport, and kind of looking back, I maybe wish I would have kept baseball going. But hard to say. It kind of worked out for me on the basketball side. So
yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much it. My dad was the president of Rawlings, so growing up, I was very fortunate to have a lot of equipment around.
Yeah.
So our Little League teams were pretty taken care of, always having gloves, new basketballs, different things. So it was, actually kind of spoiled as a kid having my dad as president of Rawlings. So it was actually pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. I could see you being a pitcher, but for sure. Well, whenever you're playing, like in high school and things like that, obviously you're a 4-year starter and everything. How soon? I don't really want to skip to this already, but it's like when were you starting to get a little buzz around you? When were you starting to hear from colleges and things like that?
Probably, I think my first letter I got was after my freshman year. I think Villanova was the first one that I received, and then obviously that following, I had a big sophomore year, and back then really AU wasn't that big.
Right.
A lot of things was done through the high school, through your team camps and different things like that, and I had a pretty big summer after my sophomore year where things started to blow up, and then through my junior year when I got invited to that Nike All-American camp, and that's like the top 120 kids in the country, and I ended up leaving that camp, ranked in the top 10 in the country. So that was to where it kind of separated me from on a national stage. And the state-wise, it was kind of me, my class in 92, it was really me and Chris Collins. Chris Gandy was ranked up there a little bit, but they came to Illinois with me.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a huge, big powerhouse class. But we were mainly the 1-2 back and forth, kind of throughout the state in my class.
Right. I've had guys on here, like several from Chicago, and then TJ Wheeler coming from like a Class A school. So for people that might not be quite as familiar with Collinsville, I'm like, my family, we're diehard Cardinal fans, so I've gone by there a million times. But the competition level down there compared to, so where some of these other guys were coming from, like up around Chicago and things like that, and then a few from Peoria, things like that. Like, how would you describe it?
I mean, we had a lot of good, obviously in the Metro East. You combine St. Louis and, on the Illinois side with us, Edwardsville's always had big programs. O'Fallon, Althoff, East St. Louis, Lincoln, produced LaFonso Ellis, Quanzo Martin back then. So we had plenty of talent around to play. And then obviously with kind of where my status got, we started playing a pretty good national schedule. We played my senior year, we played DeMatha out of Maryland. And then we played my junior year, played Glenn Robinson's team out of Gary, Indiana. So Chicago King came down my sophomore year and played us at our place. So we picked a pretty good, I come from a pretty big tradition kind of school that, we've been known for players in the past. And we kind of, when I got through it, it was just kind of extending from previous players that have been through. And so we've always had good, good schedules and good competition. So I would rank it up there. I mean, obviously all your Chicago folks think anything less than Chicago, there was, we're playing on baskets in the farm somewhere, but I think we proved them pretty wrong. You know,
right? Yeah,
we could compete with anybody. And TJ
right, exactly.
the same thing. So
yeah, I've talked to them, and you know, where I live, if you look out of our back door, there's a cornfield. You know, so I've tried to explain to them, you know, about, and then you know, but then whenever you make this back then in Assembly Hall, you know, then that's, you know, you get to come down state and everything like that. How close did you guys get?
Yeah, so my junior year we got beat. I guess that's a super sectional down in Carbondale, which that would have been the year, you know, Proviso East won it that year with Donnie Boyd, Michael Finley, and I can't think of the other guy. They had 3 NBA players on that team.
Yeah, I kind of remember that too. Yeah.
Yeah, the way the schedule kind of worked out, that's who we'd play first round anyway. Carbondale had a kid, Cross, that went to Carbondale, so we ended up getting beat at Carbondale. But then my senior year, we got past the super sectional, and first game again was Proviso East, which we were probably the 2 best teams in the state at the time. Unfortunately, faced the first game, and you know, it's funny because I just finally watched that game about a month ago.
Yeah.
And you know, one last possession, I wish, you know, looking back, I couldn't. I'm glad I didn't look at it because it's still kind of bugging me now that, you know, we should have actually won that game, but you know, stuff happens.
Right. A name just popped in my head, and that could be completely wrong with that Finley group, but there's like a Sherrell Ford in there somewhere.
Yeah, Ford was the 3rd guy on that team. Yeah.
Okay. Woo. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was, you know, high school, you know, in Illinois. Like I said, that's what I think is so cool about it, because you got the southern, you know, you're coming from southern Illinois, and you know, guys up north too, running them and them, and seeing how you compare with everybody. But whenever you were, so you're doing all this, you're playing. Did you get hurt? I thought I read something about like I was doing some research, like breaking. Right. Yeah.
The summer after my sophomore year, I broke my right wrist going up for an alley-oop. Guy undercut me, so I pretty much sat out that whole summer. And then my senior year, we were playing over in Indiana against a team had a 6'10", 6'11" kid that was going to Indiana. Big post player. I went to drop down to block his shot, and he ducked, and I flew over him and landed on my wrist and ended up breaking a bone in my left wrist. So I was out, I guess, around 6 weeks my senior year.
Gotcha.
But was able to come back. That was kind of right before Christmas time, so late January I came back. But
yeah,
so lost a little time, but you know, we still made a nice run towards state at the end.
Right. Okay, well, let's get into when are you starting to seriously consider things as far as we're going to go to college, things like that. And I mean, I'm a sucker for a good recruiting story. So if you have anything, or just like visits you took, guys that came to see you, things like that, if you want to share anything.
Mine was pretty crazy. You know, I think it was after my junior year, like I said, when I got back from that camp, you know, they had me ranked. I think that was the 7th best player in the country at the time. So obviously, my list, you know, I was a big Kansas fan. I love Danny Manning, so they were big on my list. I was Arizona with Lute Olson, because I liked Sean Elliott. UCLA was a big program that I liked growing up, and then North Carolina, and then Duke, and then Indiana. So all those were kind of my main. So all those coaches were ones that came in for their home visit. You know, in a 1 week span, I had Bob Knight, Coach K, Dean Smith, Lute Olson, Jim Herrick, Roy Williams all at the house.
Okay, you have to. Okay,
which was really cool. I mean, so yeah, you know, trying to break that down, that's pretty much
I got
you can have right there. But
anything stand out that any of them said to you that you could share, comfortable share?
No, I mean, it was, you know, obviously Bobby Knight, his pitch was always against Illinois.
Yeah,
he could do more and how much better they were than us, and he always pinned that to. I mean, obviously Duke was Duke because they were coming off. They just won a national championship and would have won back to back. They did win back to back my senior year, so they were the best team in the country. North Carolina was the top team that had won in the national championship. Would have been my freshman year if I would have won. Arizona won a national championship. Would have been my senior year, I think. So yeah, I mean, it was all top programs. Kevin Stallings was a former Collinsville Hawk that was assistant coach at Kansas, so that one made that one a little easier. But yeah, just tradition schools that were, and unfortunately Illinois couldn't really put a full court press on me because they were on probation.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't do an in-home visit. I couldn't do an official visit to them, and maybe that might have helped them. But yeah, so when I had that all narrowed down, had all the home visits, then I got to schedule all my official visits. And Duke was my first official visit. And Mike Bray was assistant coach, obviously former Notre Dame coach. Tommy Amaker was assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
They flew in, picked me up, flew me to Durham, dropped me off on campus, and went to class with Grant Hill. Bobby Hurley was my host. So yeah, it was, obviously they just won a national championship, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came back and I really thought that was probably where I kind of narrowed it. I'm like, if I keep doing all these visits, it's gonna. Because I've gone through this with all three of my kids. They're all Division I athletes. It's hard once you start. Because even my wife got to the point she goes, I don't know how because you build relationships with these folks and you get to know their families and you get to know the players, and you had 5 or 6 programs. That makes it for a 17, 18-year-old kid, it's really tough to make that decision. So when I got back, I was like, all right, I'm good so I canceled I was supposed to go to Indiana the following week, and Bobby Knight was not happy with me canceling my trip, and probably didn't help cause, but
Right.
I just didn't want to keep it going down the list and try to drag this thing on and make it harder for myself. I mean, kind of hard not to narrowed it down to Duke and Illinois, and it's pretty easy. And I came very close to going to Duke, but had a lot of pressure to stay in the state, obviously. Coach Henson lost some big-time players a couple years before me, so there was a lot of pressure on them to get, as me and Chris Collins, the only 2 McDonald's All-Americans from the state.
Yeah.
Duke and Illinois were recruiting both of us, and Duke wanted to have both of us, and Illinois could only take one of us because of the probation status. So they kind of put all their eggs in the basket for me. And looking back, it was tough times. I didn't enjoy it at the end because obviously it's cool meeting all these coaches, but then you gotta tell them no, and it's a big decision. And obviously growing up in the state of Illinois, always, to me, a home state kid should play for their state, and that's kind of what it boiled down to, for my parents being able to see me play every game. I felt comfortable going there. So that's kind of where the decision kind of fell, and went with it. And, obviously started all 4 years and had a good career. So I don't look back on what ifs. So I think I did the right thing.
Right. I was going to ask you that, but yeah, that's when you're that young. I mean, even as grown-ups, it's really hard to tell people no, and you got 5 or 6 of them, and they're probably leaving thinking, okay, that was a really good conversation. I think, and then knowing that it's a really good chance you're going to get rejected, and when you're young, you just want to say yes to all of them. You just want to go to play out all of them. It's like,
yeah, it's tough. I mean, they do. I mean, these guys do a great job when you go on their visits. That's what I kind of knew. If I would have went to, at North Carolina, Arizona, UCLA, and got out there, UCLA and LA, and saw that campus, and Jim Herrick kept telling me Magic Johnson would take me under his wing, and they throw out the craziest stuff at you, and that's why I was just like, I'm gonna cut this list short and move on. And it's a tough thing to do because you're turning down unbelievable programs, and but like you said, it's tough. I watched all 3 of my kids go through it.
Right.
Yeah, I tried to help them as much as I could. It's a hard process now. You're doing it every year in a transfer portal, so it's even crazier times.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's insane. But I mean, one that sticks out is when I was talking to Marcus Liberty, and he went out to Syracuse, and went out to the clubs and stuff like that with Derek Coleman and these guys. went in Boeheim's office and heard the spiel, and he said that he verbally committed to him right there on the spot.
Yeah.
And then he got on the plane, and I guess he said Sonny Cox, like, got a phone call and was like, get your ass back here. You're not, because
No, they make it tough.
when you're that young and you're by yourself, you're just like, oh, this is great. I'll go here and play,
Yeah, Duke actually brought me back out for another visit, and it was during their blue-white game. Because that first visit, they're not in season, so it's just preseason stuff. And so they brought me back out and really put I got half a camera in indoor stadium chanting my first name.
Oh,
the other
man.
half chanting my last name. They just put the full court press on you. And they try to get you to fold there, and it's I kept telling Coach K I can't make my decision right. I couldn't give them a verbal yes there. And
Right.
they tried, but looking back, I think I made the right move.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to talk about this later on, but you brought up your kids a few times. Maybe talk about them a little bit, and you said they're all Division One athletes.
So my oldest, RJ, he's a redshirt sophomore at Boise State, 6'7" shooting guard. He's been in the starting lineup this year, kind of been off and on, broke his nose, kind of went out of the starting lineup. But, yeah, unfortunately he had a redshirt year, then a medical redshirt year, because he's after that COVID year that kind of got hurt from those kids coming back. So he redshirted, but then he got hurt, medical redshirted. Then last year kind of played a limited role, but had a decent year. And then this year he's playing really well. I'm really proud of him. He can shoot it, but he's kind of taken on that role where he's just trying to be a super glue guy, great passer, great rebounder. We're just trying to get him to open up and shoot a little bit more because he can shoot it. But, yeah, he's having a good season. So, that's the thing. And then my daughter, she plays volleyball at Baylor. She's just going to get her degree here in May. And she's going to actually do her grad year out in L.A. at LMU. So it's going to be kind of cool for her. Yeah. And then my youngest, I was telling you before, he's a senior in high school, and he's really talented, 6'7" shooting guard that can do everything. And he's ended up committing to Montana State out in the Big Sky. And so unfortunately, I only have 3 out west, but all 3 of them, they're special, and they do really good things, and I'm proud of them. And it's a lot for me and my wife because you think it's easy to go watch your kids play, but it actually makes it more stressful. But we're trying to enjoy it because it's actually really cool.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm sure that all your accomplishments kind of pale in comparison to getting to see all 3 of your kids, do what they're doing.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, it's so much fun. Like Saturday we played in a high school team, played in a regional final deal, and then my oldest was on FS1 at 5:00, and we're watching that. And yeah, it makes for some interesting times. And then it's hard for us because we got to travel, and Boise's on those mountain time trying to stay up and watch these games late. It's awesome. We try to relish in it and enjoy it while we can because we know this stuff goes quick. So
yeah. It's we've got an 8-year-old, and I'm coaching bitty ball, his little bitty ball team.
Yeah.
And so I know that we're in for a wild ride probably because it will go fast. So
it will, yeah, and it gets crazy, but definitely enjoy it. It's awesome.
Yeah. I could just talk the next hour about like what these coaches go in there, like just going into your house. It's amazing. Other guys have talked about that too, but I just think it's funny. Before we get into the other stuff though, while it's on my mind, like what do you, because you can have 2 different perspectives from this. Okay. The whole NIL transferring craziness. First of all, back when you were playing, how would you have felt about it, and how do you feel about it now, having 3 children that are playing D1 sports?
Yeah, I think it would have been awesome when I was playing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We just look forward to the per diem we get after a game, and
yeah, no kidding.
That was enough to get us through the weekend. It's crazy. I don't know. Yeah, obviously I got 3 kids kind of going through it. My oldest, RJ, he actually is doing it the right way. He's actually, his NIL is, he's got a roofing company that he supports and does marketing for, and there's a glass company that's in town, a couple different things that he actually has a big following on social media, and he obviously uses his name, image, and likeness to help that company and help himself, and I think that's what it was intended for. And then obviously now it's whoever got the biggest check and just writing guys checks and not having to provide anything for them, and that's where it's kind of gotten out of hand. But I don't blame them. I mean, I think it's great they're getting a piece of the pie. I wish I would have got a cut back in the day. But yeah, I don't know where it's going to go from here. It's got to be at some point you got to cap it, I think, or
Yes.
Especially on the mid-major. Boise lost a player. Their best player went to USC because got paid more money, and
right.
Hard for a mid-major to stay in it. I mean, obviously these ADs have a challenge now because they got to go raise even more money than they did before, but more money for the players, not for the program. So it's a tough balancing act that these guys got to do, and I don't know. I like it, but I don't like it. So I don't know where it's too far out of the bag now to pull it back in, but
yeah,
I think they would have to at some point.
Right.
Hopefully
Yeah, I feel like
kids
that.
get enough to take advantage of it where they can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm not smart enough but I know that my two main things are like I have no idea how you pull this off, but you got to cap it, and I feel like if you transfer once, you can play the next year, but if you try transferring twice, then you should have to sit a year that second time or something just to keep it at least somewhat under control, So, but
yeah, because you watch, we watch a lot of college basketball, and I'll see a guy, and he looks old, but I'm like, you can just tell he's got a good presence on the court and how he handles himself. And I'll look up his bio, and this is his 6th year playing. He's been to 4 different schools. And
I know
if that's good or not. Back in the day, I used to root for a school and follow a player along for their senior year.
Yeah, that's what I like with my son. It's like used to get attached to these guys because they'd be your guys for at least 3 years, and now it's just year to year. You have no idea, who's.
Yeah, and it's a gamble. I mean, transfer portal's great, but to be a good basketball team, you got to have guys that have roles, and you got to have guys take on. Somebody might be the leading scorer the year before, but his role's different now, and some of these guys don't accept it. So you never know how each of these guys are going to mesh. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's the interesting piece. It's a challenge for these coaches now. It's a whole different ball game.
Oh yeah.
We saw it on the high school level. My son played on one of the top, EYBL Nike teams this summer, and they just didn't. And he's one of the top shooting guards in the state of Texas, and it's crazy that they didn't. Coaches looking at high school kids now is not the same.
Right.
4 or 5 years ago, because they, if you don't have to have a high school kid if you don't want it. You can go take a kid out of the portal that's already played 2 or 3 years. But
right.
At some point,
that dynamic's completely changed.
I think there's a good kind of mix you probably need to stick with because some of these kids are getting missed on, but they're going to be really talented. So they just got to find somewhere to play and showcase and find the right coach that can develop you.
Yeah, and then it's almost like you've got it's kind of like a trickle down effect. So their high school kids aren't getting looked at as much. So then you may not go to a quote unquote high level school. You go to like a mid major, and then you get seen there, and then that's when you get
get poached from there.
Yeah. Then you get poached and go to a big time school.
But sometimes being at that mid major might be a better opportunity for you to showcase your skills, and I've seen some of these kids now in these rosters that come from the lower mid-major level and went from playing 30 minutes to 7 to 10 minutes, or I don't know if that's. I don't know. I try to put myself in their shoes, and I'll see. I got one at a mid-major level now that's producing, but he's kind of old school too. He's been there 4 years, and that means something sometimes. Then you become well known in the community. Fans like you, you're fan favored, and sometimes that can go along with. I don't blame these kids for taking the money to leave either. I mean, somebody offers you $500,000 at 20 years old. Probably should
Oh, I
take
know.
it.
Yeah. I think that, the mid-major Illinois fans, think it like Marcus Damask last year, but it doesn't work out like that all the time. It's like he's kind of a different situation.
Yeah, he kind of did it the right way. He played 4 years at Carbondale, but then
Right.
kind of the old school, play 4, you get to do your grad transfer kind of year. I actually like that. Now it's some of these kids are just bouncing after 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
They might not be ready, and I don't know. Every case is different, and it's hard to really put your finger on which is right and what's wrong. And I think these coaches, everybody's kind of scrambling and going through it. You don't really know what your roster is going to look like from year to year. So it's definitely
think of it this way too. Well, like Damask, I meant like as good as he was, like you get a mid-major guy like that is that good. Like that doesn't happen. I mean, like for him to be like a first-team All Big Ten player, but that's also him being as old as he was. But Terrence Shannon's playing for the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is in his either 5th or 6th season, and
he's older.
Shannon's older than Anthony Edwards, so it's like that tells you a lot. But
no, there's obviously a lot of different paths, and obviously me going through it, I think the NBA is one of the toughest leagues to make in any sport. So it's even more challenging, I think, because think about the big guys that don't. They're kind of better off in college than it is in pros now, and that's strange to me. I come back from here where we had post players,
Mhm. Well, don't you feel like if Kofi was played back in your era, he would have been probably top 5 pick in the draft,
Yeah, that one blows me away. I still can't how he's not on an NBA roster, but I mean his size and he can still at least shoot a little bit. I think he probably utilize somebody like that, but I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm not a GM. But.
Yeah. We got like way ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I wanted to kind of ask you too, because like going back to like when you were like in high school, was there a favorite memory, like individual team? Like, was there a game that you can think of like right now that you go to that was probably your favorite or favorite moment? Anything like that? Yeah.
I said we played in a couple of those St. Louis shootouts, which we played DeMatha, we played Glenn Robinson's team. Obviously, that quarterfinal match at State my senior year against Proviso. I wish it would have ended better, but it was actually a fun game. It's the first time getting to play on Assembly Hall on the court. But those kind of stick out. We had Chicago Keene come in. They had the 2 7-footers. That was cool.
Hamilton and Griffith.
Yeah. So we played some big games, and obviously I come from Collinsville. It's a big tradition school, and a lot of our games were sold out and cool atmosphere. And so we played in a lot of good ones. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move kind of on to college here. Like when you first got there and started playing, what did you feel like was the biggest adjustment you had to make, like from the high school to college, like the high school to college level, like on the court?
So I was a point guard in high school, and luckily Rennie Clemens was the point guard when I got to Illinois, so I kind of shifted to a shooting guard. But yeah, I didn't, I felt the transition pretty easy. Lou and them used to always get mad at me on my defense, but I always matched up against the other team's best player, which, if I wasn't a great defender, then why am I guarding, Michael Finley? Why am I guarding Calvert Cheney my freshman year,
Right.
But, yeah, those were, my freshman year in the Big Ten, and Fab Five were sophomores. Indiana was great with Allen Henderson, Calvert Cheney. Wisconsin was great with Finley. Everybody, Michigan State with Restford. So many good players. It's just really cool, and it was a very talented league. Just cool being a part of it and fitting in. We had some big games to be a part of, and that freshman year, 92, 93, we actually had a really nice team that should have probably went farther in the tournament than we did.
Yeah. So you were 6 seed and got beat in the second round.
Yeah, and we beat Vanderbilt at 30 at the beginning of that year, and that's who beat us in the second round. And I can't exactly remember who. Somebody got upset ahead of us, so we were kind of looking ahead, I think. But we just kind of ran into a buzzsaw. Billy McCaffrey from Vanderbilt he had an unbelievable game.
Right.
But I think we could have went, we could have got by them. And there's no telling. We get to the Sweet 16, what can happen. That team was pretty talented with Kaufman and obviously Dion and Rennie. And it was a fun team to be on. And it kind of ended. We should have won. We should have been in the Sweet 16, but unfortunately it came up short.
Right. Well, then you were second in the Big Ten Freshman of the Year voting. So, I mean, obviously you adjusted to it well. I mean, and then the next 2 years you guys made the tournament.
Yeah, we got bounced. In the first round both times, and strange matchups. Got beat by Georgetown. I think it was an 8-9 seed maybe.
Yeah, that was 8-9 game looks like.
And I think it's Tulsa up in Albany, New York, which had an NBA player on the team. Just had a really good game. But yeah, then unfortunately my senior year we were 10th in the country and beat Duke at Duke and got beat by Syracuse in Hawaii, and there's only one loss going into the Big Ten, and then Kiwan gets hurt. And we start the Big Ten like 1-5, if I remember correctly, and rallied back and got to like 9-7. We were a bubble team and ended up coming up short. And I was the only senior on that team.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had played NIT instead of tournaments. That was
right.
Disappointing kind of end to my career, to be honest with you. But
by the way, I just had Kiwan on. By the way, speaking to him, and he was naming off some of his teammates, and he said that he's like, yeah, Rich, like, man, he used to get us in all the frat parties. I was like, yeah, I'm sure he did. But he was I'm trying to think. Okay, well, one thing I was going to ask you though, like when you got there and everything, what was your relationship like with Lou? Maybe while you were there, and then did it change after you played, or how was all that? Because the people I've asked, I get a lot of wide variety of responses. So I mean,
yeah, I imagine. I don't know. It's kind of different. He was, obviously I came in with a lot of
hype for sure.
Yeah, a lot of hype, and I mean, he was tough on me all 4 years, to be honest. But I think that's kind of the way he coached a lot of guys. I don't know. It's one thing I'd say about Coach Henson. He prepared us really well for games. The guy lived and died basketball. I mean, he did it 24/7. So obviously going into games, we were well prepared. And coaching wise, wasn't the biggest fan of how, because he tried to pull me back from high school. I used to throw a lot of no-look passes, do a lot of freedom that he wouldn't allow me to do in college, but I'd still do it, and he would figure it out like 2 plays later.
Yeah. I know. I remember, like, you were a great passer, and it was, but it was, I mean, there's a little part of that too, especially like in high school. I think that's probably why our coach wanted us to go, because obviously you're the 100%, 1,000% trying to win the game or anything like that. But if there's just like little flashy things like that the fans can get, and keep them coming back. I mean, just doesn't have to be like showboating, but just you did it in a way that
I ever did it to where I wasn't. Because he told me if I did it behind the back pass, but one instance we're playing Missouri and the shootout, and obviously for me that's a huge game. I think it was my senior year. I had a breakaway. The player cuts in front of me, and I got Chris Gandy trailing. So it's just natural wrap around the back pass. He dunks. Henson finds out literally 2 plays later. I'm having a great game. It's obviously a big moment, big night, and pulls me from the game because he found out they're behind the back pass.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It used to kind of bug me, but.
Well, because it's silly. I mean, of course it's going to bug you. Behind the back passes, there are times when it's the most logical pass.
And I would still do it. And I remember one time we had another one down low, and a guy a big guy came up, pumped. I dropped one to, I don't know, Shelly Clark or Dion, and I remember Jerry Harrison at the time. He goes, "Man, you got some guts," because he pulled me out of the game for that, and I'm like, "But I'm still going to make the play and deal with the consequences afterwards." And eventually put you back in the game. But,
did you feel? I feel like there was so many guys that had so much talent that felt like that, and they also felt like played super timid because they were afraid to make a mistake because they knew if they did, they were getting taken out.
Yeah, and it's not the way I would coach, but also, I mean, you obviously can handle. I could handle coaching. I played for a really tough high school coach that was, mentors were Bobby Knight and those guys too. So I didn't mind getting yelled at and never played with the fear of making a mistake. But some guys do have that problem because we had a couple guys that were really good practice players, but when the lights were on and the big stage, maybe that played into it where they didn't have the freedom or were afraid to make a mistake. It's amazing if you give players confidence and trust of what the different kind of player you can get from them. But I would say most coaches, you got to be able to handle tough coaching. And I'm very fortunate. All three of my kids are very good at it, and they actually kind of thrive on it. So it's a makeup. I don't know if it's something you got to train. I mean, I know from coming from Collinsville, we're big on mental toughness and discipline and different things like that. So I was kind of prepared coming into college, and I could kind of handle it. I would say I was coming coast to go play for Coach K and Bobby Knight, which were both very tough coaches to play for. So,
right.
I think every kid's got to have that mindset and be able to handle tough coaching and actually learn something and thrive on it.
Yeah. Most of these high school kids, though, you're the stud on your class, and then you go, and then you're not even used to watching them from the bench, and then you take that plus, knowing that.
Because
everybody's just as
with
good as
minutes
you.
and different things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I was very fortunate to start all 4 years and didn't have that problem, but so I do appreciate that from him. That I had obviously. I don't know how many straight games I started there, but it's a tough one to put he retired for my senior year, and those guys had Lon Kruger come in the following year and kind of see what he did with that. I was the only senior.
Yeah.
And what he did with that team, what Kruger did with that following year team, so it was pretty impressive.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Did you see that coming your senior year? Did you think that Lou was about to hang it up, or was that kind of a surprise to you?
No, I mean, I felt it was probably the time, maybe sooner. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe from his standpoint, he probably should have ran out with the Illini RIchard Keene, and gone out on a high note.
Right.
So we did miss some guys the following classes that should have went to Illinois and didn't. And I don't know if that was from that or not. I mean, obviously he was a Hall of Fame coach for a long time, did a lot of good things, but at some point, guys have got to get to the point where and we're seeing that here now with a lot of these, Jim Boeheim's finally shutting it down, and once you get up to that age, it's a full-time job and around the clock, and it can wear on you.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, whenever you saw, so Keewan talked about Lon Kruger coming in. So you were I didn't realize you were the only senior on that team. So you're the only one that missed out on that then, pretty much. Yeah,
because me and Chris Candy came in together, but Chris redshirted.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
Chris was kind of a disappointment. I mean, and then Lon got there, and he was really good as last year, if I remember right.
He turned a lot of players around, and some of them, like you said, due to finding a guy that just builds you up and gives you confidence, and maybe find something that he sees that someone else didn't see that you can get coached out of you. So it's definitely finding the right mix and who can handle some certain things, and some guys play better for other guys that are I don't know. I know Lon's a really good players coach, and obviously he's very successful. At Illinois, didn't make it well with the Atlanta Hawks, but back in college, he's an unbelievable. He actually recruited my oldest at Oklahoma, but he's a really good guy and a very talented coach. And yeah, it would have been cool to have 1 year under him.
Right. Well, all this stuff that happened in Illinois, like over the years, do you, how about that favorite game, maybe like team-wise, and a favorite individual game for you?
I mean, obviously my freshman year I hit the 3 to tie the game, and then that's when that little ball bounced out. It went off AC Earl, made Deion Thomas went in, and then that's when they brought in TJ and he threw that length to the court pass to Andy, and
yeah,
first kind of court storm, and I was kind of on the bottom of the pile. So that was kind of awesome. I mean, that was one of my first kind of big taste of, I don't know, every Big Ten game was fun, but I mean, that one was really cool. It kind of sticks out. Every Missouri-Illinois game for me was huge. Even though I went 0-3 and finally won my senior year. I mean, that's a triple overtime game my sophomore year. Unfortunately, that one ended bad, but atmosphere in those places, I mean, it was the coolest game. I mean, my senior year, I made sure every guy on that team was ready for that game because I couldn't go 0-4, go back home and listen to Missouri fans. So,
right.
Those were big games. Beating Duke at Duke was cool, obviously, because they recruited me, and Cameron Indoor is a special place. And
yeah.
So I mean, we had some big matchups, big games in the Big Ten. So I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. This is probably the toughest player you had to guard while you're.
Sean Respert.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
now he's great. No, but he was a great college player. But like if he's a name that
people
not
don't think
you
about,
guys obviously, but maybe slips through the cracks a little bit whenever you're thinking of. But
yeah, he led the Big Ten in scoring. It was his senior year, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Not super athletic. Not super athletic, but just
get flat out
shooter.
And they would run him off 15 different screens. And it's funny, we played at Michigan State, and Coach Henson's like, if he scores, I'm taking you out. And I'm like, he's leading the Big Ten in scoring. He's going to score him.
I'm not going to shut him out.
It's like. But my freshman year, like I said before, I guarded Calvert Chaney at Indiana, Michael Finley at Wisconsin, Respert at Michigan State, Jalen Rose at Michigan.
Yeah. What made Respert a little bit tougher to guard than those guys for you individually or specifically, I guess?
I think because they just ran them off so many cool sets.
Yeah.
They did a great job. I mean, once you come off 3 different picks and getting drilled, back then they allowed the big to kind of swing his shoulder and hit you in the head a couple times, and yeah, that just made it tough. I felt like I was easier to guard, like a Calvert Chaney or Michael Finley, just because they were 6'6", similar to me. Easier to stay in front of them. Rose was 6'9", couldn't shoot, cut kind of back off him a little bit. And then Purdue had Big Dog, which kind of just blew up in college and was without a doubt the best player I've ever played against. I think it was my sophomore year, Purdue won the Big Ten championship at Purdue, and that's when he went off with 49.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the locker room afterwards, and everybody's like, we all tried to guard him, from the post player to the, you name it, and 6'9" guy that just rides up over anybody, post you up, do everything. He was special, and he kind of gets lost because he was the first $100 million contract in the NBA, but he had a great career, but I think people forget about how good he really was.
Right.
And obviously Chris Webber at Michigan was unbelievable talent. I mean, so there's a lot of good players back in the early mid-90s that came through the Big Ten.
Oh, definitely. What was your favorite road game? Let's just do Big Ten schools though, not like overall. Like, what was your favorite place to go play on the road? And
I like playing in Indiana just because it felt like a high school gym to me. Just because the bleachers behind the basket, good shooting sight line at Indiana. Purdue was really cool just because, like I said, when they won the Big Ten championship, it was so loud in that gym. And you could be 2 feet from the next person screaming, and you can't hear them. it was that loud in that gym. Kent State had a cool atmosphere. Obviously, Iowa was a cool court to play on. I kind of played in some of the older, Ohio State and Wisconsin were older gyms before the newer ones. Yeah, those are probably the big ones, I would think.
Was there a place that you just, not to be negative, but you just thought was kind of a dump? Like, I mean, a place that you just like kind of didn't
no,
like?
I had a bad shooting night at Minnesota, so I'll throw that one in there.
That's the one I go. When you watch it on TV, it just seems so. I don't know. I feel like it's
cool,
kind of odd.
It's a cool barn. My daughter actually played at Minnesota, and I walked through it again a couple years ago. It's a cool how it sits up, but I don't know. I shot decent there my freshman year, sophomore year. I think it was. I think I might have went 1 from 12 from 3. It's like some crazy stat.
Yeah.
I'm like I was going to keep shooting, but I don't know what it was that threw me off in that gym. But it's still a cool, really cool tradition, old school gym.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so I guess kind of winding up Illinois stuff. Like, so overall, I don't know. I asked D on this too, but is there anything looking back on it that you wish you would have done a little differently while you were there, or are you good with the way everything went?
No, I mean, like I said, I wish obviously we had a really good team my senior year, and kind of started that Big Ten stretch there. Obviously, with injuries, kind of played a role in that. I wish we could have. I mean, we're ranked top 10 in the country at one point, and ended up missing the tournament. And then once you miss the tournament, you're kind of, we really didn't want to play that NIT game.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So that's probably the only disappointment. I mean, I don't regret. I mean, built a lot of great friendships on and off the court. And, I mean, I had a blast playing at Illinois. I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Yeah. Do you keep up with this year's team?
Yeah, and like I said, we watch a lot of college basketball, but obviously I'm focused on Boise State, and then Montana State, where my youngest is going. So we track them a lot, and obviously we're my son, so we're really focused on Boise. But when we watch basketball every night, so
right,
it's definitely with the realignment, the Big Ten and Big 12, and it's definitely a lot tougher now to grind your way through. And I know Illinois is kind of going on a little skid right now. But,
yeah, for sure.
I still think they're talented. I just hope they can kind of pull it together. I think they got enough talent to make a run. You never know. You just got to stay in that tournament.
Right. Yeah, that's the issue now. Is just get in.
Yeah. We were looking at last night, kind of watching that Rutgers game and looking at the bottom 3, and it's tough. I mean, it's a grind. It's a lot more of a grind now than it was back then with 18 teams and the travel schedule you have. And so you got to hope everybody stays healthy. You got to hope there's no injuries. Hopefully, guys are peaking at the right time. And unfortunately, Illinois is kind of not. Maybe they're through all that. Hopefully, and get a run going. Because Boise State's kind of in that same boat where they're a bubble team. They're first 4 out right now. And they got a big one this Wednesday night against Utah State at home. So if they can beat them, they might move into the tournament field.
Right. Where do you land on all the kind of old school versus new school as far as like positionless basketball? And because Underwood doesn't even run sets, it seems like they just kind of go and I feel like I'm old. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm just a little bit younger than you, so it's like you got to run. To me, it's like you got to run. You have to run things. You can't just. I don't know, but where do you land with all that?
Obviously playing against Bobby Knight teams, I learned a lot about slipping screens, doing a bunch. I like that kind of movement. I like the little floppy actions down low, coming off 1 or 2 screens. The only thing that kind of bugs me in the nowadays game is they run a lot of motion stuff that are not just motion. There's nothing to it. Like they're not looking to score out of it. Then they get 5 or 6 on the shot clock and have to force something out.
Mm-hmm. Do like a pick and roll with 5 or 6 seconds left.
Yeah, I would go more quick hitters and just utilize mismatches or whatever you can and kind of attack a little more early in the shot clock. Heck, when we played Iowa back in the day, they used to run the flex cut till 10 seconds on the shot clock, and then Tom Davis would run a play. I don't know. Everybody's different. There's, I like, look at UConn's style of last year, running guys off screens. Mike Boise just played Nevada, and Steve Alford still kind of runs some really good sets and some down action. I mean, for a defender, the hardest thing is to be coming off multiple screens, and then you got to have different switching coverages, and that's where some teams get confused, and that's where you can kind of take advantage of some mismatches, and that's how I would attack things, But you do have talent on Illinois. I mean, they got guys who can shoot. Obviously,
Yeah,
point
well,
very
I don't know if
talented.
you've been...
Let them roll. I don't know. This tournament's going to be, you just want to get in it, then you can do anything once you get in it. So I think it's a pretty,
Right.
It's a pretty even. I mean, there's some top-heavy teams a little bit, but I think throw anybody on a neutral court, even though Duke kind of took it to you guys the other night. But
oh my gosh, yes, but and they were 2 for 26 from 3.
Yeah,
so
you hope that doesn't happen. I mean, you're not going to beat very many people like that.
Well, I think I saw they're 5th in the country in like 3 points attempted per game and like 214th in percentage. So it's like maybe we ought to adjust something here. It's just stuff like that. But I'm big on sets too. You have to, you have to. I just feel like those are
make it tough on defenses. You got
to
make them work for it. I don't know. Yeah, the shooting the other night was the main reason.
Yeah.
They got good enough shooters, they'll be all right.
Right. Well, like if you don't mind, maybe here you've talked about your kids and stuff like that, but maybe kind of let Illinois fans know kind of what you've been up to, like after your college career was over. Like, where's life kind of taking you?
Yeah, so we moved when I got done playing. We were over on the Illinois side. My wife was a high school principal at Columbia High School, and then she went across the river, was a high school principal in Pattonville, so we moved over to Missouri. But then my job my company got bought out. I'm in the oil and gas pipe business, sell pipelines. So they made headquarters in Houston in 2008. So in 2011, we moved from St. Louis. My oldest was in 3rd grade at the time, and moved to Houston. We live in the Woodlands. Yeah, I've been in the oil and gas business for the last 23 years, and it's where we raised our kids, and yeah, we love it. I mean, it's beautiful weather, and being in the South, I mean, it is a football state, baseball state, but we do a lot of talented basketball players do come out of Texas. So.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we've enjoyed it, but now we're 3 months away from being empty nesters. So
yeah,
that's going to be intriguing, and but we'll just be traveling, obviously, out to Boise, to Bozeman, and LA the next year. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's really, really neat. Did you ever think about trying to play after college, keep playing, or?
So I tried. Yeah, I was in the CBA up in Fort Wayne, and was there until December, and got talked into go taking a deal in Finland. And I got home, that deal fell through. Then I played on this little team over in Dubai, and came back, bounced around, had a tryout with them, Milwaukee Bucks, Miami Heat, different things. And that's what I said before, I think NBAs are really, especially back then, you had 12 spots. And the thing I didn't realize coming out of college, because, you think you're one of the top seniors, you go to the pre-draft stuff and potential getting picked in the 2nd round. And when you show up to one of these camps and you realize, well, that's not your class that's out competing for these jobs. It's the last probably 8 years of guys that have played in the CBA or go overseas, come back, and they're all battling for 1 or 2 spots. And that's when it kind of hits you that, it's tough. It's just not your class. These guys just don't give it up, and they're professionals, and they're older and more wiser. And it's a tough one to get. It's a lot of politics get involved. You got to be in the right place at the right time. And I just got to the point it just wasn't. I didn't think I was going to make it, and then ended up just getting in the workforce and got married, and having kids, and move on with life.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. having a great life too. But you're obviously good enough to play overseas. So I mean, so that was just something that didn't really appeal to you after a little while.
Yeah, it gets to the point. I mean, I don't know. I think it's different, especially for a 6'6" white guy when we're kind of the European style player anyway.
Yeah.
They're not, we're not the prototypical that they're really looking for. More point guards, centers, athletic wings. But I mean, obviously, you can go play anywhere now, and back then you could go play anywhere. And I think you realize too that what you have here in the United States is pretty special, and living in a foreign country and for 3 or 4 months, I don't know. I just got tired of dealing with the hassle trying to bounce around and.
Yeah, and especially you got a great job. I mean, you didn't need it, man. It's like.
No, but and that's the thing. I mean, there's some great opportunities, great spots, and you can make some really good money overseas. And a lot of guys do it, and you get put in the right spot in the right kind of high-level league overseas. You can make some really good money and do some really good things. And a lot of our guys have done that. But where I was kind of teetering with, I just didn't think it was worth it, and so decided just to move on from it. Some guys try to hang on and keep going, and it just gets harder to stay in shape. So, but there's definitely opportunities for other people. I mean, it's like the money now in the game. But now you're better off just being in college. So.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's crazy. But at least you're being honest. Like, man, it sucks that you came along before all this stuff.
Because if you're smart and kind of put that money away,
right?
That's a good little nest egg to get your career started. I mean, some of these guys are going to have some false hopes once they find out in the job world what you actually make coming out. But maybe they invest it right, and there's obviously that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, and my oldest is doing really well at it. It's about building relationships and building your network and connecting with the right people that can help you along in life. So I think that's kind of the good thing now, the social media and craze that it is now. I'm kind of glad we didn't have social media back when I played, but it does make it tough. But I mean, obviously now these kids are professionals almost to the point.
Yeah.
You got to be able to handle the criticism from these random people online. And
definitely.
Guys in the newspaper would take shots at us, or now you got to some random follower that has 6 people following them are going to.
Yeah, that doesn't know damn thing about sports, just running their mouth. Yeah, it's just brutal.
So you got to, we try to tell them, and I think they're pretty smart about it.
Yeah.
Because these fans are pretty ruthless at times.
Right.
Basketball is a tough sport, especially as competitive as it now,
Yeah. I got one question that's popped in my head here I wasn't going to ask, but okay, so your daughter plays volleyball for Baylor, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the NIL situation like with sports besides the main, with basketball, football, stuff like that? How different is it with women's volleyball and things like that?
It's getting better. Some of the top programs, and Baylor's a top 20 program in the country.
Yeah.
But just here recently, probably the last 2 years, you can kind of see the trickle down because, being a non-revenue sport, you're not getting taken care of like the football team and the basketball team. And now you're starting to see that money kind of trickle down. Now with this new revenue sharing, you'll see it even better. But your schools like Nebraska, Wisconsin, Texas, and volleyball are those girls are getting paid, and they're getting paid pretty well. But it's not to the level by any means where college basketball is. But there's some money out there, and which is good. I mean, it's good for these girls' sports. I mean, I know there's some gymnasts that are making really good money. The softball players are making really good money. So it's good to see that it's spreading across. And, it's tough on these volleyball teams. They're not – and actually, Baylor got chartered some flights, but, mostly they're flying commercial and doing other things. If they don't have, that money's not – now it's kind of going to paying players and other things on the bigger sports. But, yeah, so it's kind of cool. I mean, but she's at the end of it kind of.
Right.
She got her degree in 3.5 years in business, and she's going to go play her grad year out at LMU. And,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for her. She's 6'2" outside hitter. That's really talented.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, you should just be. That's just amazing how having kids that are being so successful. It's great. But speaking of kids, I always kind of finish these off. I let my son, he's in the second grade. I usually let him ask a question, or if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, hang on. Let me grab him real quick. Hey, Stevie. Come here, buddy. You got something in your mind? You got a question? Okay, come here real quick. Okay, tell Richard hi.
Hi.
Hey, Stevie, how are you, buddy?
Good.
Okay. What's your question?
What's your favorite NBA player of all time?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I come from the Michael Jordan era, so I would think Michael Jordan's probably my favorite player.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
kind of hard not to have him up there.
Yeah. Very
But,
good, very good.
nowadays, we live in Houston, so we had the James Harden era for a little while. I'm a big Luka fan. There's some really talented guys. I mean, mentioned Edwards, Shane Gildress. There's some talented guys out there. NBA is exciting to watch.
Yeah, he watches it all the time. But yeah, I try not to. Some of the stuff I'm like, we don't need to be learning that. But I mean, overall, it's like it's fun to watch. But okay, what are you telling, buddy?
Thank you.
Thanks, Stevie. Good night, buddy.
Bye.
Bye now.
All right, cool. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, man. I know that there was you're one of the names I was hoping I could track down, just because, he had a great career, and then obviously been very successful since you've been playing, and I know a lot of people will be excited to hear how you're doing, so thanks a lot for coming on.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
Good time.
Yeah. I'll keep you posted on everything, and I'll be putting it out and everything like that, and then promote it and stuff, so.
Okay.
But,
cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Richard.
Yeah, if you need anything, man, just let me know.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks a lot, bud.
Yep. Have a good night, buddy.